Let us join our palms together in the Anjali position and recite together. Homage to the fundamental teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the fundamental teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the fundamental teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. Verses of opening of the Dharma. The unsurpassable, profound, and wondrous Dharma is difficult to encounter even in hundreds of millions of kalpas. Now I see it, hear it, receive it, and uphold it. I vow to understand the true meaning of the Tathagata. Namo Pho. Okay, so let us continue. In our last lecture, we covered the second part of this chapter 2, which has to do with entering the path. And we talked about the 8 difficulties that can actually obstruct or impede a person, a consciousness from entering the path, the Buddha path. And now we will continue with obtaining the human form and the significance, the importance of obtaining the human form. Stanza 23. In the transmigration of birth and death, the human form is the most difficult to obtain. Recollection, pure conduct, diligence, and courage are the 3 superiorities that surpass all heavenly realms. Explanation. There are people who consider human life to be very insignificant, whether due to having little knowledge and capability or due to having unfavorable circumstances. So the perception of most people, even many spiritual seekers in major religions, they think of the human life as a meager, insignificant, helpless. But that's not the case as taught by the Buddha. And we'll continue the explanation. They then lament about themselves, hate themselves, victimize themselves, and cannot generate the resolution to study and practice the Buddha Dharma. They do not know that in the transmigration of the 5 destinies of birth and death, the human form is the most difficult to obtain. This is a precious and rare opportunity, and if let pass in vain by belittling oneself, it will indeed be an enormous waste. So, according to the Buddha, the human birth, this human form in this realm, is most precious and rare. How rare and precious? So he goes on to explain. And Master Yinshun, it's drawing from analogies found in the Agama and Nikaya. The rarity of the human form can be explained from 2 aspects. Number 1, in the transmigration of the cycle of birth and death, those who are reborn in the evil destinies are as numerous as the grains of sand, while those who are reborn in the good destinies are as few as the dust beneath the fingernails. So imagine that. The grains of sands compared to dust beneath the fingernails. Those who are reborn in the good destinies, such as the heavenly realm, will receive pleasure for a long period of time. But when they perish from the heavenly realm, many will fall. Therefore, The rarity of obtaining the human form is like the analogy of the blind turtle floating and sinking in the ocean. If on the surface of the ocean there were a wooden plank with a hole in the middle, and the blind turtle stretches its head and coincidentally fit into the hole of the plank, how rare would that occurrence be? Being in the transmigration of birth and death and obtaining the human form is equally difficult. The probability is so infinitesimally small. And then to add to the original, the story, it says that the wind blows in the ocean, and then the plank is being pushed from side to side, and the turtle, the blind turtle, only surfaced to take a breath of air once every 100 years. So imagine a blind turtle swimming in the ocean, open ocean, and there's a plank of wood with a hole big enough for the turtle's head to go through. And then the winds are blowing from all directions. And then so once every 100 years, that blind turtle surfaces, the neck reaches above the water, and then pokes through that plank, the whole of the plank. That's the probability of being reborn as a human in compared to rebirth in the evil realms, evil destinies. So it's pretty rare, right? However, most major religions in our world, the purpose is to go to heaven. And it's not just 28 heavens, it's just one heaven. And that is a very different view, uh, a very different perspective on the human form, you know, of in difference in Buddhism in comparison to other religions. Second of all, and number two, furthermore, even though the human body has many types of suffering and pain and is an unsatisfactory condition, it is still very rare. According to the sutra, the three superiorities of the human being, recollecting from memory, acting with pure conduct, and diligence and courage, not only are unattainable by the three evil destinies, but also far surpass all heavenly realms, all the beings in the heavenly realms. And that's spoken by the Buddha. The three superior abilities, superiorities of the human being. Right? So let's go to explore which three. Number one, human beings can recall and remember the past, preserving the experiences of their history. Therefore, the power of reflection and the power of reasoning of human beings, especially developed, are called the superiority of recollection. So, what makes human beings different from all other animals on Earth is that we're able to pass down knowledge, remember, recall, record history. We have the ability of language, uh, oral language, written language, that all these things are part of that superiority of recollection. That's why human beings can amass many, many humans together with a common cause, but of course, these causes can be for good or for evil. Okay, but it's talking about the human potential of recollection. And of course, as you all know, history, human history passed down from people before, from ancestors, are written by whom? By the winners, right? So even the history itself, it can be skewed, but the knowledge, technology, tools, all these things can be passed down generation. So that's how we evolve, uh, in advance compared to other animals, right? Number two, superiority would be human beings can disregard merits and benefits, yet still practice self-control, cultivate pure conduct, pure actions, making their own body and mind pure and in harmony, benefiting the people of their community, etc. Therefore, all self-sacrifices by voluntary self-control, the spirit of human morality and ethics, with its extraordinary grandeur, are called the superiority of pure conduct, meaning with the purpose that humans, a group, a community, a religion, they deem as true, as worthy, then for that purpose, they are able to restrain their own so-called pleasures and sacrifice themselves for a cause. And that is another potential that human beings have. If you look at animals, their brain, their being function more like always on survival mode. But human beings, there is a reptilian brain that is always considering the survival mode, but there's the other part of the human brain and evolution that seeks after something beyond, transcendent. That's why it's able to direct its energy towards a pure conduct. Of course, again, this is a double-edged sword. It can be if that group of humans are believe in evil cause and think that evil it's demanded by the higher power, they can still do harm. They can engage in genocide, wiping out animals, humans, whatever group that they deem inferior or not worthy of being in this realm, right? So superiority of pure conduct is that something you can call it the spiritual calling, but it can be evil too, right? So it's a potential human beings have. Number three, human beings to achieve some goal are capable of enduring suffering and overcoming difficulties, of acting with diligence and courage, and of not giving up until their goal is achieved or goals are achieved. This is called the superiority of diligence and courage. Okay, so having memory, being able to recollect things, methods passed down by other humans, and then identifying a certain cause of pure conduct, a conduct that they collectively agree on and are in sync with, and then the determination, the perseverance, that superiority of diligence and courage. Human beings will not give up until they get to their goal. Human beings decide to go to the moon, then they do. everything that they can to go against gravity, to go against the atmosphere, to make an object so heavy to like a rocket to take human beings to the moon, and then send the satellites, probing devices to throughout the universe. Superiority of diligence and courage. Right? So Confucianism says that knowledge, benevolence, and courage are the three virtues of human beings, very similar to the three superiorities taught by the Buddha. Right? So I want to emphasize that these three things, the superiority of recollection, of pure conduct, and the last one is diligence and courage. These three things are potentials, okay? But if used wrongly, human beings have been known to cause havoc and are still causing havoc today, using their knowledge wrongly and the benevolence of thinking we, this race, this country, this collective people are superior than the others, and they want to wipe them out, right? And then the courage and then the diligence of carrying out genocide, killing, a harm, all the planning. That's all coming from the potential, these three superiorities, the three potentials. If used in an ill way, to harm beings, well, that's what we're living with right now. We're seeing a lot of harm being done through political manipulations, through propaganda, through a lot of things, and then carried out through these three potentials towards harming others. So, therefore, human beings are the most valuable among all sentient beings, meaning more valuable than heavenly beings, hungry ghosts, animals, and hell beings. It is due to the reverence for the grandeur of this human species and also to the effort in self-improvement that it is possible to become virtuous or noble, saintly, to become a Buddha or to become a patriarch, a great practitioner. So it is saying that these three potentials, superior abilities that human beings have, is what enable us to achieve enlightenment, awakening, compared to all other realms, all other sentient beings, to become the Buddha. In the sutra, it is said, when the life of a deva, a celestial being, comes to an end, other devas say, may you be reborn in a destiny of peace and happiness. And the paradise of peace and happiness they long for is exactly the human realm. If the human form is really the paradise longed for by all the devas, the celestial beings, then how can someone born human lament and belittle themselves, letting this life pass in vain, like feeling like a victim? I'm born as a human because I did not practice spiritually in the past. No. It is due to your upholding the five precepts in past lives, even in one life, that you are able to be reborn as a human now. So it's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. So this, that you need to get it through your head. how different the Buddhist perspective is compared to all other major religions. It's talking about the human form as the place to be, the right place, right realm to achieve Buddhahood, to achieve liberation. This is it. This is the right battleground. Continuing. Stanza 24. The difficult to obtain, now obtained. We must diligently cultivate the actions of the Dharma. We must not enter the treasure mountain and lament with hanging hands, returning empty. Okay. So the human form, difficult to obtain, has now been obtained. Therefore, how happy and fortunate we should be to take advantage of this rare opportunity and diligently cultivate the actions of the correct Dharma. Life is impermanent, and the sutras say human life is between an inhalation and an exhalation, a breathing in and breathing out. And in no way should we wait until tomorrow, next year, or the distant future to practice. Wait till retirement. Wait till you are not so healthy. Wait till the right moment where all your desires have waned and then you're no longer, you can't see as well, you can't walk as well, you can't do things as well, your memory is failing you. Wait till your decline, then go, yeah, now I'm going to practice spiritually. No, no, you're wasting your time away. Taking advantage of this opportune moment and being in the Buddha Dharma, we proceed with courage to be able to obtain the benefits of the Buddha Dharma. We must not waste time passing life in vain, for when our breath stops, we will have obtained nothing from the Buddha Dharma, and we would have wasted this life. This would be like entering a treasure mountain and seeing many types of rare and precious jewels, but not having the sense to quickly take them or benefit from them. When the time comes to leave the treasure mountain, they hang their hands in regret and lament in vain, returning empty-handed. And this is an analogy also found in the sutras. If we do not dedicate ourselves during life, what good is it to lament at the brink of death? Meaning, you're approaching your death, you know your time is near, and then you want to practice spiritually. You want to recite the name of the Buddha. You want to read the sutras. Suddenly, you want to do everything, and you ask the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, please grant me more life so I can practice. The question is, when you were well, what were you doing? What did you spend your time in? How did you waste your time away? Entertaining yourself, passing the time, wasting your time, eating good food, traveling to wonderful places, and then just enjoying life, doing extreme sports, all these things, looking for pleasure in the mundane world, in worldly things, and in the gooey, sticky feeling of human relationships, all this sticky love, and thinking, yes, this will fulfill my life. Really? When you're approaching your death and you are right there, your life flashes through. What are you going to take with you? Can you take anything material? No. You like passing life in vain, accumulating things, and knowing that you can't take with you. What kind of ignorance is that? Okay, so let's say now you wake up and you realize no more waiting. This is it. I'm going to dedicate my life towards practice, Buddhist practice. Then let's go to this section. It's called the goal, the three levels of interdependent motivation, meaning the three levels are interdependent, but there are three levels of motivation, right? The goal. Stanza 25. Hearing the Dharma and generating this resolution. According to dispositions, the Buddha Dharma becomes distinct, different, varies with the disposition of human beings. So, explanation. Associating with Kalyana Mitras, hearing the correct Dharma, and generating the resolution to study and practice it, due to the different disposition of sentient beings, the single flavor of the Buddha Dharma differentiates according to such dispositions and becomes distinct in various teachings. Generating the resolution, making the vow, the right intention, the motivation, means having a firm determination and vow in everything one does and practices, advancing towards the goal according to the vow. The vow that you make, it's in the horizon and you work towards accomplishing that goal. Generating the resolution is not a fleeting thought that arises casually. One must generate the vow with conviction to realize the state of determination. So basically, the importance of your intention, what motivates you to practice Buddhism, the different methods of the Buddha. Why? Why do you do it? And then there are three levels, right? So when the Tathagata or a great bodhisattva teaches the Dharma, if the audience consists of only one person, then naturally the Dharma is expounded according to the occasion, adapting to the disposition of that listener, and instructing different methods, whether basic or advanced. If in the midst of a crowd, like more than one person, like it's a crowd, the Tathagata, the Buddha, uses his inconceivable supernatural power. Thus, in the ears of the listeners, each one considers that the Buddha speaks in the language that they can understand and the method that they wish to hear. The Buddha speaks in the language or the voice, right, that they wish to hear. Therefore, it is said, the Buddha uses one voice to expound the Dharma, and sentient beings comprehend it, each according to their disposition. Under these circumstances, it can be said that the teaching heard is precisely adapted to the disposition of such a listener. What this is trying to describe is how the Buddha's infinite compassion and wisdom allows the Buddha to teach, to speak in one voice, yet the listeners will capture and perceive, interpret that according to their disposition, that it will be useful to all of them. So the one whose disposition of a lower level or basic level, they will hear the Buddha's voice teaching the Dharma and they will understand it as basic level. And then if it's of the intermediate or middle level, then they will hear as such. And advanced, they will hear and capture the advanced voice of the Buddha. Now that's the Buddha we're talking about. One voice can teach a lot of people, a lot of beings. However, for most Dharma teachers, and we're talking about humans, members of the Sangha, it is difficult to have the ability to teach the Dharma with one voice. And moreover, they may not be able to differentiate between dispositions of beings. Thus, they only expound what they themselves understand and practice, or the teachings that the majority are capable of understanding and practicing. When listeners they hear. When listeners hear teachings like these, they are not necessarily adapted to the disposition of such teachings. There are some people who hear from the Buddhist scriptures, either randomly, sequentially, or by selection, and in all these cases, it cannot be affirmed that any teaching encountered is for any disposition, or basically suited for any disposition. So this is trying to say that when we are hearing the Dharma and from teachers of today, it's not like hearing the Buddha, right? One voice, and then we can actually get the benefit. Sometimes we hear this Dharma teacher, we don't get it. The way he or she expounds something, we don't feel in sync. We don't get it. And then sometimes with another teacher, wow, I get it. Suddenly I understand everything. Or sometimes because the teacher does not realize my disposition or my level at this moment, they teach according to what they know. And they express in such way, they explain in such way that they understand the material, but to me, it's irrelevant. It's not too relevant. Maybe in the future it would be relevant, but at this moment, not. So that's why, that's what distinguishes the Buddha, the eloquence of the Buddha, being able to feel the energy of the room, of the audience, and know, okay, what to teach and what to say and what not to say to confuse the beings. And whereas Dharma teachers are limited in that ability of eloquence, of so-called unlimited, immeasurable, skillful means, right? So one voice can only reach some people, right? It would be just great to reach most people. Now here it says, I'll give you an example. The esoteric school is predominant in Tibet. Okay, so the so-called Tantrayana in Tibet. And the Sravakayana school is predominant in the southeast of Asia, right? Like Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, right? And the Chan school was predominant in ancient China, right? Or even Japan, Korea. If in almost every place it is so with predominant schools, can you affirm that in Tibet everyone has the disposition for the esoteric school? In the south of Asia, everyone has the disposition for the Sravakayana school. And in ancient China, everyone has the disposition for sudden awakening. Certainly not. You cannot affirm that, right? Because even in a certain region, there are different dispositions, right? So one particular emphasis on a certain type of teaching may not be for everyone in that region. So therefore, the disposition of each is defined mainly according to the resolution and vow generated by each individual practitioner. One should not read, recite, or maintain certain teachings thinking that they are of their own disposition. Okay, so what is Master Yinshun trying to explain here? Basically, it's about regional loyalty, school loyalty. Some people from certain places say, yeah, in my region, this is a school predominant here, so I should be belonging to this disposition. This teaching is for me, given the geographic location, where I am located. Not necessarily. It all depends on your own disposition this lifetime and also the vow that you have made in past lives leading to this life and that resolution. So he's asking people to be open-minded. All beings, all practitioners, especially Buddhist practitioners, should be open-minded towards different kinds of teachings. Listen, reflect, practice, experiment, right? And of course, eventually you need to commit, right? So, therefore, do not be biased, nor cling to a teaching, believing it to be the greatest or most wonderful, as the most important thing is to examine one's own resolution given the period, the stage of your practice. Because you can start with a certain method and then you will start evolving or advancing towards other methods. Everyone is different, but be open-minded and then do not slander. Do not slander other methods because it's not for you or you don't get it, right? Or do not grandize. Wow, this my method, the method that I practice that my teacher teaches me is the best. This is the only method that everyone should practice. No, that's an illusion. Okay, continuing. So we are talking about the levels of teaching, right? So he talks about the attitude and then the possibilities of how we approach the teachings, because we are it's not the Buddha teaching nowadays. Our Dharma masters, YouTube, and then the different texts that the Buddha left for us, and even the commentaries of the disciples. So let's be open-minded and find the right teaching to suit our own disposition, our own resolution. Okay, stanza 26, continuing. At the lower level, one seeks the improvement of future lives to obtain happiness in the present and happiness in the future. At the middle level, one generates the mind of liberation to obtain the happiness of nirvana's liberation. At the highest level, one generates the great Bodhi mind to obtain compassion, wisdom, and ultimate happiness. Okay, the explanation. Regarding the resolution in the progress of study and practice, the differences between various dispositions are indeed numerous, and it is impossible to list them all. Because how impossible? The Buddha said, there exist 84,000 different methods for 84,000 different beings, sentient beings, right? And 84,000 it's a number, it's a magical number in ancient India that which means infinite, innumerable, unlimited. You cannot count the number. 84,000. So there are certainly many methods, but briefly, they fall into these three categories. Basically, you can, all the Buddha's teachings from beginning to towards ultimate enlightenment, Buddhahood, can be categorized in three, just three categories. First, the mind of betterment or improvement of future lives, right? And we also call this the mind of benevolence, okay? And then by benevolence, meaning that improving your life, present and future. Second level, second category is called the mind of liberation, renunciation. Renounce what? Renounce the three spheres. Renounce the greed, hatred, and ignorance. And the mind of Bodhi, awakening. Okay. Which means the mind towards ultimate awakening, Buddhahood. These three categories are respectively the lower, middle, and higher levels explained by the Bodhisattva Maitreya. Okay, so lower can also uh, be known as the basic, middle could be the intermediate, and higher could be the advanced. Also, just different way of translating the three levels. I just want to share with you, remembering of the five vehicles of the path to awakening. So it talks about the human vehicle, the celestial vehicle, and these two are grouped into one thing. Okay, human celestial vehicles. And then Shravaka vehicle, Pratyeka Buddha vehicle. Okay, so these two vehicles will take you to that part of liberation. And then the last, Bodhisattva vehicle, will take you towards Buddhahood, right? The five vehicles, right? So the teachings, the categories have to do with these five vehicles. So let's start with the lower level, basic level. In the Buddha Dharma, people with the resolution of the lower level, they are of the lower level in Buddhism, but in the world, in our world in general, are of the higher level, are those with the mind seeking the improvement of future lives. What does improvement of future lives mean? It means that the retributions obtained in the future life compared to the present life will be somewhat better and somewhat superior. For example, whatever you practice now in this lifetime, in as far as appearance, longevity, fame, wealth, social status, family members, knowledge, skills, physical health, family harmony, assistance from friends, etc., etc., all the good stuff in this world. One wishes that in the future life, in the next life or future lives, all these things will be better than in the present life. In the Buddha Dharma, this is not the final goal, but it is still correct, as it is indeed a suitable method for seeking progress in improvement of life. So this is saying that this lower level is still good. It's the basic. It is the fundamental thing, for a spiritual practitioner, somebody who wants to better their life because they're not satisfied with how their life is right now, or they wish they could be better, right? Now, this is not the final goal, but it's still okay. It's still healthy. It's a healthy desire to want to improve life now and future lives, right? And so this is with the resolution of the lower level, the betterment, the improvement of future lives. Of course, if you are improving for future lives, you might be already improving the present one. Now, here it says this level of improvement of future lives is further divided into two groups. One, those who vow to be reborn in the human realm, and two, those who vow to be reborn in the celestial realm, right? So I call it they're known as the human vehicle and then the celestial vehicle. People with this type of disposition of the human and celestial vehicles seek happiness in the present life and furthermore seek happiness in future lives because by practicing according to the Buddha Dharma, they can obtain happiness in the present life and in future lives. They can also obtain good retributions. So basically, they are investing through their practice in a better life. And all the aspects we named above appearance, longevity, even height, health, fame, wealth, all these things, all the mundane aspects, intelligence, eloquence, emotional intelligence, but still they're all mundane. However, in circumstances, to seek merits and happiness in future lives, working hard and sacrificing a bit in the present life is also reasonable. Okay, so he's listing different cases, right? There are those people who seek merits and happiness in future lives, but they work hard now because they're going through a hard time. So they work hard and sacrifice in this present life. And it's reasonable because they're sacrificing for their better future. Therefore, having happiness in the present life and in future lives is the most ideal. Okay. If that is not possible, suffering in the present life and having happiness in future lives, it's still or is also acceptable. Meaning, okay, so there are those people who are having a real hard time, struggle. They struggle a lot, whether physically, intellectually, financially, emotionally, right? In this life, and even spiritually, not being able to have access to the Dharma or to teachers. Okay, so they're not happy, but then they sacrifice in the present life in order to have happiness in future lives. That is still acceptable, right? Let's go into the unacceptable ones. Now, in the case of enjoying the present life and suffering in future lives, or unnecessarily suffering in the present life and suffering without limits in future life, this does not correspond to the correct Dharma of the Tathagata, but rather to distorted and erroneous practices. So, meaning you enjoy the present life thinking the practice that you're engaged in brings you joy, yet they will cause suffering in the future. That's one kind. Or even worse, even more senseless, to engage in unnecessary suffering in the present life and suffer without, and that will lead to suffering without limits in future lives because you create the wrong views, wrong habits. And that's distorted and erroneous practices. This is actually pointing out to ascetic practices. And then, so there's a famous saying, most people say, I am so grateful towards all the suffering that I've been through so that I can be in this position right now. Thanks to all that suffering, I'm better now. Or thanks to all the suffering that I am engaging in right now, I will definitely have a better life with less suffering. Meaning that they think suffering It's a quantifiable thing, a bag of suffering. So here's a bag of suffering. And if I suffer more this lifetime, this bag will reduce itself in quantity and I'll suffer less next lifetime. And wow, if I suffer everything to the maximum, I suffer all the bag of suffering this lifetime, next lifetime is just happiness. Only happiness is left for me. And then you're probably listening to me and go, huh, what kind of idiotic practice is that? Well, have you ever heard the term 吃苦就是吃补? Okay, that's a Chinese saying, um, meaning to suffer uh, is to nurture your being, is to nurture yourself. How do you know it's not unnecessary suffering? Maybe it's avoidable. Using skillful means and wisdom, you can avoid certain kind of suffering. As far as we know, the Buddha's teaching is to alleviate our sufferings. How can the Buddha's practice cause more suffering to us if we're doing it correctly? Okay, so this is just, and then this merits a lot of discussion. We will do that in Q&A. I'm pretty sure some people already have images and then questions, right? But we need to continue with this material. So aiming for human celestial merits and happiness, okay, right here, and thus generating the resolution and then practicing, all this is classified as the lower level in the Buddha Dharma. Those who generate the mind for improving life, even if they practice the transmundane Dharma, will receive nothing more than human celestial retributions. Okay, so what does that mean? Means even if someone were to practice the transmundane Dharma, like Satipatthana, the four fundamental practices of mindfulness, but they're aiming just to better their life, to just have a calmer life, peaceful now, then they will receive nothing more than human celestial retribution. The practice itself from the Buddha can be very, can help us transcend our desires. But if you practice it just so enough to alleviate your suffering, then it's still mundane. You will only receive human celestial retribution. Conversely, if they have such a vow but create many bad actions, it will increase negative karmic force, causing them to fall into the three evil destinies. And the desire to seek the improvement of life will be unattainable. Okay, so even with a vow, oh, I would like to better my life, yet they do not abide by the precept. They do not practice like mindfulness, focusing their mind. They do not practicing the right views. And they engage in evil practices and hurting other beings, taking advantage of other beings. Even though they say, I am a Buddhist, I would like to improve my life. No, they still will not be able to improve their life because cause and effect, karma and consequence is real. You reap what you sow. So that's the lower level. Okay, so lower level would be like here. The three levels of Buddha Dharma, meaning the Dharma common to the five vehicles, also known as the human celestial vehicles, right? And then, or the content would be the betterment or improvement of present and future lives. It's right here. It's the most basic aspect of Buddhism. And that's the only part that is common of Buddhism with other religions, the major religions that teaches benevolence. Okay? Beyond this level, Buddhism is different. And that's what we're going to the second level. People of the middle level generate the mind of liberation. Those with human celestial retributions from the mind of improving life, even if they do not fall into bad destinies and continue progressing, although they advance and advance, ultimately they are merely transmigrating within the three spheres and will not reach the final stage of awakening. So this means that they can, if they practice the lower resolution, then they will reach a certain cap, no more, and they will have a great life. They will have great relationships. They will have all the things that they desire, but no more, because they have not generated the mind of liberation. And then they're not interested in going beyond the three spheres, right? So if reborn in the celestial realms, from the sphere of desire to the sphere of form, from the sphere of form to the sphere of formlessness, they will continue to be reborn until they reach the heaven, the highest heaven of the 28 levels of heavens. It's called neither perception nor non-perception, and cannot advance beyond. So, with that resolution of just lower level of the mind of benevolence, of improving future lives, one can practice up to a level of the highest heaven in a formless sphere called the neither perception nor non-perception. And once the meritorious karmic force, even in that realm, is enjoyed and exhausted, these beings will begin to decline again. They'll be reborn in the lower destinies because they are not transcending the three spheres. They are not actively trying to reduce their greed, hatred, and ignorance, and especially ignorance. Especially, they are not establishing the right views that lead to liberation, nirvana. Okay. So it's talking about the danger just practicing the human vehicle and the celestial vehicle and not seeking liberation. From this deep understanding, one realizes that the three spheres are unsafe. They are like a burning house, and thus generates the aspiration and vow to renounce the cycle of birth and death within the three spheres. So this phrase, the three spheres are unsafe, they are like a burning house. It's direct quotation from the Lotus Sutra, meaning this is not the place where we will be safe. We need to generate the mind of liberation to get out of the three spheres, and liberate ourselves from the cycle of birth and death. By being able to generate such a resolution and practice the transmundane Dharma, one can be free from the cycle of birth and death and obtain the happiness of nirvana's liberation. The happiness of liberation is obtained from the abandonment, relinquishment of afflictions, and is entirely different from mundane happiness, which, when is it reaches the extreme, transforms into lamentation. It's talking about mundane happiness, worldly happiness reaches the extreme. It's usually transformed into lamentations and sadness. And when it ends, suffering follows. The happiness of liberation is the total emancipation from birth and death, where there is no more transmigration. Compared to the good human celestial retributions of the lower level, it is even more complete and definite. So it's making a case for the level of the mind of liberation that we should aspire towards beyond just improving our present and future lives. And this level is further divided into two groups, right? The Sravaka vehicle and the Pratyeka Buddha vehicle. And together they are called the two vehicles, right? So here, so we're talking about common to the three vehicles, the Sravaka, Pratyeka Buddha, and also the Bodhisattva, three vehicles, right? And then here it says, when it's naming Sravaka and Pratyeka Buddha, they are called the two vehicle plus the Bodhisattva vehicle. And their resolutions and results are generally similar. As explained above, those who generate the mind of liberation, even if they practice the superior Dharma of the great vehicle, at best will attain nothing more than the fruit of the Sravaka vehicle. So what does that mean? If one makes the resolution for liberation, yet they practice the Mahayana way of the great vehicle, they will still attain nothing more than the fruit of the Sravaka vehicle. Meaning, one can recite the name of the Buddha, Amitabha, Buddha, medicine Buddha, according to the practices of the so-called Mahayana way. Yet if the resolution is, I just want to liberate, then they can only get the Sravaka vehicle, not beyond, not the third highest level. On the other hand, if they generate the mind of liberation, but do not practice renunciation actions or create bad actions inconsistent with the Dharma, this will cause the karmic force to surpass the force of the vow. And even good human celestial retribution will be impossible to attain. So this is saying that even if someone said, I practice the way of liberation, the mind with the mind of liberation, they make that vow, but it's not in accordance with their actions. And they cause negative karma, harming beings. They magnify, they increase their greed, hatred, and ignorance. And thinking about liberation, no, thinking is not enough. It's the action that counts. And even the good human celestial retribution will be impossible. Meaning that even thinking about liberation and then breaking the precept and then having a distracted mind and not practicing right view and even practicing wrong views, establishing wrong views, and then even as a human or celestial realm, they cannot attain. So people of the highest level, right, generate the great Bodhi mind. Now in Sanskrit, Bodhi means awakening. Now we're talking about the third level. So here, the great vehicle, the Bodhi mind. All the virtues of the Tathagata's fruition are called unsurpassed, perfect, and correct Bodhi, awakening. Okay. Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi in Sanskrit. Having the great awakening as the central purpose and encompassing all virtue, meaning attaining Buddhahood. That is the highest spiritual attainment of all sentient beings in within the three spheres. Generating the Bodhi mind is having the great aspiration and vow to achieve Buddhahood. The mind of liberation of the middle level, although definite, is not sufficiently elevated. This is analogous to a ship that sank during its voyage and all the people on board fell into the water. If there's someone who, ignoring everything, uses all their strength to swim to the shore and observing indifferently their shipwrecked friends in the water, lies down and rests comfortably regarding freeing themselves from danger, that person succeeded. Okay, so like in a way, someone who seeks liberation is almost like a sinking ship or a house on fire. They just sprint out, and even though there are other people, friends, family, beings in the burning house, they don't care. They just go, I'm gonna save myself. And they will succeed. But regarding the ethical essence of being human, they were imperfect. Therefore, there are people who do not only desire their own well-being and liberation, but make vows to save themselves and others, benefiting themselves and others, hoping to reach the other shore together with all beings. Basically, with a sinking Titanic, they are helping others get on the lifeboats, or even their life, giving them life jackets so that they'll be able to survive the sinking ship. And if there's a burning house, they are warning everyone, run outside, and they are risking their lives so that other people can be saved. So reaching the other shore together with all beings, meaning being led by the great compassion. However, how is this possible? Only a Buddha can completely fulfill such a great aspiration and vow. Only the great wisdom, great compassion, great vow, and great power of a Buddha can definitely liberate beings. Thus, taking the Buddha as a model and generating the great aspiration and vow to achieve Buddhahood, this is the Bodhi mind. Once the Bodhi mind is generated, one practices the Bodhisattva actions, benefiting oneself and others. Upon reaching complete perfection, one becomes a Buddha, possessing great compassion and great wisdom, capable of attaining the utmost and ultimate happiness of the great nirvana. Based on these objectives of the first, seeking Buddhahood, then liberating beings, and generating the resolution to practice, this indeed is the resolution of the highest level and the person of the highest level in the Buddha Dharma. So this is what Master Yinshun and myself promote. I hope all Buddhist companions can practice following this goal of the great Bodhi mind, right? So basically practicing the great vehicle. Let's transfer merits towards all beings, making resolution even for the first level, basic level, lower level of improving one's life or future lives, or the resolution of the mind of liberation. And I hope some of you will make that resolution, and all beings may have the opportunity to make the resolution, the mind of Bodhi, ultimate awakening. Okay, transference of merits. I wish to eradicate the three obstructions and all defilements. I wish to attain wisdom and true understanding. I wish that all calamities and obstacles be universally extinguished. I shall constantly practice the Bodhisattva path, life after life. Namo Pho. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Namo Pho.
Good night, everyone.
Bye,
Bye. Good night.
Coco.
Bye, Coco. Bye,
Bye, Coco.
Coco.